Hi there. So you've made it through the 60-second documentary week one website. You're at the end of this first week's worth of process where you've gone out and collected some footage. Now we're going to bring it into the computer and start talking about how we possibly can edit it down, organize it a little bit better, and just basically make a rough cut of your documentary. Now, I want to just kind of explain to you guys that what you guys are going to be working on here is probably going to last a little bit longer than 60 seconds, and that's okay. Even though you are kind of held to this 60-second time frame for the final of the project, I'm not too concerned for the first week where your time frames are really at. So as you watch through this video clip at the various stages that I'll be showing you guys some ins and outs and tricks with the iMovie video editing software, I just want to kind of in the back of your heads remind you that you're probably going to have a little bit over your 60-second time frame, and that's okay. We'll make some final edits later on so that it fits in within the frame that you're being asked to hit on, but as of right now, it's not that big of a deal. Now, as you can see, I have my iMovie window already open. The iMovie icon or program is actually installed on every one of your computers. Just make sure you're using the proper version of it, an updated version. It should give you sort of a window that looks like this. This is an updated version that kind of went with more of a black theme. And while you probably have some videos on your homepage here, the variety of ones that are up are going to be obviously different than what you see on the screen here, but regardless, the steps are still the same. Now, the first thing that we want to do here when creating a new video is simply kind of get comfortable with the Create New button, because in this newest version of iMovie, there's two options that iMovie allows us to create video-wise. They have us the option of creating a movie or creating a trailer. And these are two completely different types of film. The trailer is basically a template that is already kind of pre-formulated with what type of shots, what type of information you would need to have to fill a certain type of theme, whereas the movie is just your common regular movie video timeline. It's my recommendation from all of my classes, even the beginning 1-2 course, that you guys always start off with the movie time frame, or I'm sorry, the movie icon. This allows us to have a little bit more creative freedom. Now, your window will switch over to basically a blank timeline screen. You can see down here, I have nothing down here on my timeline, and it's asking me to drag and drop clips, and this is where we need to take the first step of importing some of the video that we've already taken. Now, if you've taken video on the DSLR cameras here, or the iPads, or your own personal phone, you're going to need to import that into the computer. You can do that via the memory cards, AirDrop, or simply just emailing yourself a link or the file footage itself so that it can get stored properly on the computer. And once those files are down to the computer, you're going to go up to the top of the screen where this download arrow is. Actually, it's the import arrow. You're simply going to click this button, and you'll get a dialog box that pops up asking you where or what files would you like to import. Now, it's usually my recommendation anytime I'm working with my classes to tell them to store things on the desktop. Now, while this kind of goes against better practices from a computing standpoint, because it does take up valuable computer resources, it's very, very easy for people to find their files as though because they're not having to rummage through small little subfolders throughout their computer. So I have all of my footage on the desktop, and matter of fact, the footage that I have is actually organized down here. It's stuff that I didn't necessarily take myself. It's just some sample footage that I wanted to use for the explanation of this video. Now, I'm going to actually import every little video clip, which looks like a lot, but if you kind of come in here, it's 7 seconds, 6 seconds, 27 seconds. I'm going to import all of this at once. This eliminates having to take this step again, and obviously it'll give me all of my footage right there for me to be available to start picking and choosing what parts I want to start editing. Once I've got all of that selected, I just click on the blue Import Selected option. And now you can see I have a populated window here of all the different film footages that I can drag and drop into my timeline. Now, obviously, there needs to be some organization to your scenes. I'm sorry, your documentary, if you will. You don't really want to just start clicking and dragging and dropping things like that. So there's a couple film footage thumbnails here that I downloaded to establish sort of a theme. Like, for example, this overhead shot that was shot from a drone, or this underwater shot that shows someone snorkeling. These could be establishing shots just to kind of introduce the viewer to what they're about to see. It could be playing along with a voiceover or possibly audio from another interview clip that I took later on. But to add this content to your timeline, you're basically just going to take that video clip and drag and drop it down to your timeline. And you'll notice it now populates the end of the timeline. And even in the preview window here, you'll notice that there's this orange bar that illustrates that the whole clip is being used. Now, if I wanted only parts of this clip to be used, I'll go ahead and delete that. Let's say I only wanted the first couple of seconds to be used. I can move the handlebar from the right-hand side and leave this left-hand area over here highlighted yellow. Click and drag that. Obviously, I have now a smaller clip that's in there, but if you look at the preview, it shows this orange line illustrating to me visually that this is the only portion of the clip that's being used in my movie at this point. This is a really nice, I think, visual to keep track of as you guys are editing your videos. If you have multiple clips that are sort of running or look the same, it's good to know which ones you've used already and what parts you haven't. Now, another really quick clip, I think tip for you guys to remember is the way that your timeline is viewed can be altered and changed too. By default, you kind of have this, I don't know what you want to call it, maybe a longer or a more a wider range of seeing time here, but this can change by sliding the home plate preview button more over towards the left-hand side. Now, this button located right directly underneath the preview window will just simply change the preview on your timeline, showing more of your timeline. It doesn't necessarily change the actual clip itself. This clip has always been 2.4 seconds. Matter of fact, to show you that, it's the same clip up here that's in orange. I must have only highlighted 2.4 seconds. But you'll notice visually it's a lot smaller because the preview of my timeline has now kind of shrunk to be able to fit in more clips. If I move this home plate icon back a little bit more, it starts to widen a little bit. And if I bring it all the way over to the side where it once was, as you can see now in my timeline, I have the full clip. Now, this is nice because if you have to go in and do some actual editing to specific time points, you can actually get in there where you want to see clips start and stop or cut from your own 60-second documentary. Now let's talk about orientation and scale. Let's say for some reason you have a video clip like I have here, these two people who are talking on the screen, but for some reason I'd like to switch them around. I'd like to change the orientation of the clip. Now, this might have been forgotten from Digital Multimedia 1, but you do have some powerful options up here to edit your video clips on the fly as you bring them down into the timeline. For example, you can crop the clip, and you can also run filters on the clip. For the sake of this demonstration, I'm going to be showing you guys both the cropping function and the filter function because they could address multiple needs that you have simply by looking and understanding how these both work. So let's take a look at cropping. The cropping tool button right here is the crop marks. You notice you have three different options: crop to fit, crop to fill, and the Ken Burns. Fit is usually the default setting. It takes your video footage and fits it to your screen. Crop to fill means you have the power to actually change how much of your subject is on the screen. You'll notice, kind of like Photoshop, you have these crop marks that come out, and if you wanted to change what is actually seen on your screen when the video is played, then you just move these handlebars in or out or change the location so that that shows up. Now, something that's really important to notice about this, as soon as you accept that change, the camera is only going to stay in that one section. So if for some reason, as you can see on this clip up here, if for some reason your camera actually changes and moves around, you got to understand using the crop to fill button up here, it could provide some problems. Let me see if I can find an area where the camera is moving. For example, let me take this aerial shot right here, shot again by a drone. Nice footage here. Let's say I want to crop this footage down a little bit and I only want to focus on maybe this small area here where the boat's at. Well, I can crop to fill and bring my rectangle down more on this boat. But take a look at what happens when I apply this. My camera is not moving all that much because when the camera was originally shooting its shot, it was more focused on the whole scene rather than just this boat. So you may see that sometimes cropping to fill doesn't necessarily work the way you want. Now this brings us back to the Ken Burns mode. The Ken Burns mode. Now the Ken Burns mode works kind of the same way that crop to fill does, but it has a starting point and an ending point. So for example, let's say we wanted to establish a really wide scene, but here at the end of this clip we wanted it to zoom in on the boat. All I need to do is click on the box that says end, change the location of my box, and then make the box a bit smaller. And you'll see when I play this clip in its entirety now that not only does the camera still have its movement, but the Ken Burns effect zooms in on that end point that you can notice here with a white dotted line. Now, like I said, I did want to cover some of the filters that we've got as well. So if you take a look at your top screen, you'll have these three circular kind of grayscale icon here. In here, you have different effects that you can lay to the audio and some different filters that you can throw on top of the camera itself. For the sake of this demonstration, I really don't want to pay too much attention to the audio effects, and considering it's a documentary, it probably wouldn't be best to mess too much around with the audio effects. However, you can explore that on your own if you feel like it's something that you want to kind of play around with. But the clip filter is a nice little menu that gives us a wealth of different options on different filters that we can apply to our clips. Now, most of these you'll notice are somewhat artistic. You can see there's the vintage or aged film, cartoony looks, and these are just filters that get applied to the original footage. But down here, there is an option for simply flipping or mirroring your clip. So in this case, if you had something that was filmed on the left side but you wanted it on the right, you could apply the flipped filter, and instantly now my boat that was once on the left-hand side of the shot is now on the right-hand side of the shot. So now you've had an opportunity to kind of drag and drop some of your clips. You've gotten some things organized here or there. You maybe have put in a title scene or some sort of nice transition to go from one clip to another. Now you want to export it and you want to push it out so that multiple people can view your file. This is something that we've covered in the beginning classes, but I think it's always a benefit to kind of go over it because a lot can get lost in translation. Now, I want to caution you that depending on how long your overall clip is, for example, my clip right now is only 14 seconds, you might experience some different exporting times. Classmates of yours might notice that this happens relatively quick, where some of people might notice that this takes a little bit longer. Being that you don't necessarily have to have 60 seconds for this first week, it's not something that I would necessarily worry about how long this takes to export out. But just something kind of interesting to keep in mind is this all depends on how long your original clip is. So you've made all of your adjustments, you've figured out what needs to go where, and you'd like to get some feedback on it. You need to export this. The export button is located directly on the top right-hand screen. It looks like a arrow pointing up with a little file or rectangle directly below it. If you hover over it, matter of fact, the word pop-out box tells you that this is the share button. If you click on that, you'll see iTunes gives you at least 6 options, some of them which are actually really nice, some of them which are a little bit more involved considering we don't necessarily need some of these. I always tell people that it's best to just simply go and export your movie as a regular file. This way you have the hard evidence or the hard file that you can post to whatever site you want. You don't have to worry about having to export it again or having to reformat it in another form that another website or another social media platform asks you for. So here we'll click on the File button, and a dialog box will pop up asking you what would you like to save it as and what are some of the different options that you'd like to have. As you notice up here, I have a box to name this whatever I want. I'm going to go ahead and call this test footage. We have a description box which you can leave blank or you can type a description in here. Really this only is for uploading to social media platforms like YouTube, along with the tag box down here, something that you can leave completely blank. The format here is always going to be video and audio. We don't necessarily need to worry about audio only. We really are focusing just on video and audio. And the resolution should stay at whatever is automatically recommended. Now, as another thing that's kind of important here, you need to understand that whatever you're shooting on, that is the video, whatever camera you're using, will differ greatly as to the resolution. These are clips that were already provided for me and they were shot at the highest resolution, so it automatically selected 1080p. If you're shooting on something like a smartphone or you're using an iPad where the settings are already adjusted to shoot maybe at a lower resolution in order to save space on the device, then allow it to format and export at that level. Of course, the quality should remain high and the compression rate should be fast as well. Don't worry about messing with these, as iMovie already kind of has gone through the clips and figured out what best is the setting wise for the quality and the compression rate for the footage that you've captured. Now that I've got all of this saved the way that I want, I'm simply going to click the next button. And it'll tell me or ask me with another dialog box, where do you want to save this? What is the location? And again, it's best practice, at least for our course, just simply put it on the desktop. That way you can always find it. You don't have to go rummaging through all of these different types of file folders. You can simply find it very quickly right there. I'm going to go ahead and click the Save button. And you'll notice up here in the top right-hand corner, you get this little circle that we'll start adding in white areas, kind of like a pie wedge, and basically show you how much longer you have to format this video clip and how long it's going to take to get through. As you can see, as I was talking, it went through that and now it's done. And every once in a while, I don't think it was going to show that because there we go. You'll get a message box that says, you know, exporting this video clip is done. That's great. We can close that window. And now I'm going to minimize iMovie here and take a look. There is my test footage, testfootage.mp4. I can go ahead and link this on the Google Drive or the Google Classroom account for our course and start getting feedback on my stuff. And just to double check, I'm going to open this up, press play, and yep, here's my footage clipped together with its specific edits and adjustments made. I hope you guys found this brief tutorial for iMovie helpful, and I look forward to seeing the types of footage that you guys shot for your 60-second documentary, and I look forward to hearing some of the comments that you guys have for each other as to whether or not there's some things that need to be further explained or things that are working out really well. Good luck, guys.